Today in the Mud Tire Garage, I'm going to be trying out 4 different degreasers to finally figure out what is the absolute best choice when it comes time to degrease an engine before you rebuild it. Now, the reason I even thought to do this test was because I was in the middle of cleaning up these heads to get them ready for a rebuild, and I was having the hardest time cutting through this thick grease that was on there, and I was using Purple Power that was mixed up in a really high concentration, and it just wasn't cutting it. So I started looking for other options, and I came up with a couple that might be interesting. The first thing you're going to see in this lineup is actually Purple Power. I am not going to be trying this out today because I have already been using this, and I buy it in bulk and I mix it up in the highest concentration I can, and it still just doesn't do a good enough job for me. So we're not even going to waste our time messing with that one. We're going to try some new stuff. The first one is an off-the-shelf option, any auto parts store. It's Gunk Engine Degreaser. This is the gel type, so when you spray it on like a vertical surface, like the side of an engine block, it actually sticks and holds there and hopefully cuts through it a little better. Then we're going to try a degreaser that's new to me that I've never tried before, so we're going to give this a shot. Now, these are the WD-40 pods. You actually drop these into a container, and I'm going to be trying out the new Harbor Freight sprayer. This sprayer is actually pretty cool because you put 32 ounces of fluid in there, and then you can drop your pods in, and you make considerably more product than what you would get out of a $12 can. Now we're going to try a few things that are not so common for use in automotive sector, but people get inventive on the internet, and I've seen some ideas that I want to try out. So this is aircraft stripper. You don't normally think about this going for engine blocks, and I had some laying around, and some people say that it cuts straight through oil and grease, and I want to try this and see what it does. Now, we'll see how that one does, but also one that's pretty interesting idea. We'll see how it turns out. Oven cleaner. I've never thought to use oven cleaner on a project before, but we're going to use it today. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this block outside. We're going to segment it off into 4 sections. I'm going to get the pressure washer out, and we're going to hose this thing down with the fluids that are back here. We're going to give it a few minutes to sit and work. Once that's done, we're going to spray this thing down and actually see what the results look like. So while I'm waiting on the WD-40 pods to actually fully dissolve, I'm going to go ahead and start applying the gunk, and then we'll move on to oven cleaner. All right, so you can see that I'm using the gunk that's the gel type, so it actually hangs to the side of the block even though it's a vertical surface, so it stays there and actually starts cutting through the grease. And if you do get gunk brand, I would say go with the gel. It's a lot thicker, hangs there a little better. All right, so now we're gonna throw on what the internet says is a really good degreaser, oven cleaner. I've never used this before. I don't know how this will turn out, but you know what? It's an old 5.3 block. It can't hurt it, so let's give it a shot. All right, so one, you can tell that it's a lot runnier, so it's coming off as fast as I'm putting it back on. But at the same time, you can also see, and I'll bring you in closer, that as it's foaming and coming down, it is pulling a lot of grease off with it as it's going, so it's doing some work for sure. Now, let's go over here to this other side. We're gonna put on the aircraft stripper, which is really harsh chemical, and then we're gonna go to the WD-40 degreaser. So you can see with the aircraft stripper, that actually comes out a lot like the gunk brand. It's more of a gel, so it's hanging on that vertical surface really well. It has a yellow tint to it, and the biggest thing to remember about aircraft stripper is the fumes that this thing puts off are harsh, extremely harsh. So you need to be in a well-ventilated environment.
Are you high?
Huh? So you need to be in a well-ventilated environment to use this. The other thing about it is when you're finished using something like this, you need to be careful, especially not use something like this inside an engine bay, because it will strip away anything it touches. So this is, if it works, I would say definitely an out-of-vehicle job. So now we've had enough time to let this dissolve. This is the WD-40 pods. I doubled up the strength, so it's extra strong concentration, and we are going to try it last. So here we go. This thing distributes pretty widespread. All right, so now we're gonna let it sit for a few minutes and see how this does. Give it a minute just to cut through all the grease. We'll do a little scrub on it and then hit it with a pressure washer. right, so that is completely washed down. Now let's take a close-up look at what's left. You can see that it's stripped down pretty well. I mean, you're stripped down to bare metal in a lot of spots. You can see original marks on it now where it was barely visible a little bit before. It's not showing any buildup in the creases and corners, which is nice. Maybe just a little bit, whoops, maybe just a little bit that I'm finding in the corners that didn't get scrubbed off. And the other nice thing is the gunk actually washed off really well. After about the first or second pass, it was pretty much all gone. There was no residue that kept washing off, as compared to the oven cleaner side. Now, the oven cleaner side, it also looks like it did a fairly decent job, actually. It took it down pretty well. As far as residue in the corners, just a small amount. I don't feel like it stripped it as much as the gunk, to be honest. The only thing I don't like about the oven cleaner is I scrubbed and I soaked this thing down with a pressure washer multiple times, and I'm still seeing residue from the oven cleaner. So if you're looking to get this thing completely bare to get ready to repaint, the oven cleaner may cause a little bit of a problem. You may need to do a couple passes of acetone washing it down, or just really soak it down to make sure that you get everything off of it, because that oven cleaner seems like it wants to stick in place and not just wash off really clean. And the aircraft stripper, I see just a small amount of residue there. The aircraft strippers seem to actually wash off fairly clean. There is just a mild amount of residue left, so it didn't wash off completely clean in the time that I worked with it. But as far as cleaning off the built-up grime, it looks like it did a pretty decent job. The one thing I'm noticing about the aircraft stripper side, I'm not finding any remnants in any of the creases. Whereas the other two, I've found leftover particles in the corners, just small little pockets. The aircraft stripper side is completely bare. I mean, it's taken off everything. There's not a lick of gunk buildup left on this thing. I can't find it. So the only one left is the WD-40 side. So looking at it, it's done a pretty good job, looks like. You know, it looks like there's still some buildup here. There's buildup there. In the corners, I don't see a whole lot of buildup. It's not too bad. It was just like the gunk. It washed off really well. After about the first pass with the WD-40 side, it washed off the majority of the degreaser, so it didn't leave any residue behind. Looking at the block right now, I'm seeing little bits of residue that are left behind, so it's definitely going to have to be washed again. So as far as the best degreaser, WD-40 is the only side that I would say definitely has to have a rewash. Now, as far as the two actual engine degreasers, they were both on the front side of the engine, where there was actually the heaviest pocket of grease, and that was right on the front of the engine. You can see right here, the WD-40 didn't even cut through that grease, and that was even with scrubbing. On the gunk side, it had a similar pocket, but it is almost completely gone. I see a little bit up in the top corner. Yeah, a little bit in this top corner here. And is there some right there? Yeah, there's a little bit of grease hanging in that corner through there as well. But as far as dedicated engine degreasers go, gunk is gonna be the winner as far as an engine degreaser off the shelf. Okay, so we've established that as far as engine degreasers go, gunk is definitely the winner, even over WD-40 in its highest concentration. Sorry, WD-40, but you've been beaten. Now, as far as the other options, the oven cleaner and the aircraft stripper. Oven cleaner, even though people swear by it online, I'm seeing a lot of residue left behind, and it doesn't look like it's nearly as strong as the aircraft stripper. So what my plan is I'm gonna take that aircraft stripper and I'm gonna hit the front of this engine where I found that massive buildup of gunk. I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute, and we're gonna hit it with a pressure washer one more time, and we're gonna see what it does to that massive pile of gunk and see if it has better results. You wet? Yeah, you're wet. Better? All right, so I just shot that down really quick. Now let's take a look back at this, because you remember this had a thick pile of gunk on it before. Now, nothing. This aircraft stripper absolutely melts away any grime that's on this engine. I mean, it's amazing. The rest of the stuff, you really have to let it sit, and it kind of eats through it, and you see it kind of change color. This aircraft stripper just literally liquefies any gunk buildup on this engine as soon as it hits it. I think that answers it. This aircraft stripper, if you want to degrease an engine outside of an engine bay, aircraft stripper is definitely the way to do it. It's way better. All right, so now that I've finished cleaning up my block, the next thing I had to do is make sure to put a layer of oil on each of the cylinder walls and all these little passages, wherever there's bare metal that would normally be a contact surface, because it will flash rust so quickly inside these engines, and you don't want that. So I went ahead and took care of that. Now, talking back about what is the best degreaser, definitely after everything was done, I would say your #1 degreaser is actually aircraft stripper. I can't believe how well and how quickly this stuff works. You don't have to do a 10-minute sit time before it's ready to scrub. You spray this stuff on, and within a minute, if you're scrubbing this stuff down, it's already cut through all the grime and it just falls off. It literally melts away. Now, the second best, I would say, was this Gunk brand gel engine degreaser. It's a little pricey, it is, but it hangs on the surface, which means that you let it sit for 10 minutes, and when you come back, it works fairly well. Now, the way I would probably categorize this is, if you are building an engine like this and it's outside of the vehicle, go with that aircraft stripper and you will be done with cleanup really quickly. But if you're working on an engine, just trying to degrease it inside an engine bay, I would go with the Gunk brand degreaser. It's safe on plastics, it's safe on all components inside an engine bay, it's not gonna cut through paints, it's safe all around. So inside a vehicle, go with Gunk. That's your best engine degreaser brand. Now, once you finish with the degreasing part of your project, the next thing you wanna do is click on this video over here, because YouTube thinks you'll like it. See ya.